What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As always, my name is Andrew Jolly and I love talking about movies. Today I wanted to talk about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Alright, so Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is the sequel to the billion-dollar blockbuster Aquaman. This is once again directed by James Wan. We have Arthur Curry teaming up with his brother Orm, and Black Manta is back and more powerful than ever. Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. I'll get into that in a bit. In terms of production, though, this movie has been a mixed bag of rumors. Early screenings were abysmal. People were saying that the movie was unreleasable. Rumors of reshoots were happening. And I feel like that would make sense. There were moments in this movie where I thought that everybody kind of sounded like they were reading off of cue cards. And that would make sense if there were reshoots where they didn't really have time to have a script because they were just kind of wanting to bust these out as quickly as possible. And so they were just like, no need for a script, just read off of this and we'll get this taken care of. And I can see reshoots happening and that being the reason why it felt like that. Or another reason could be that the dialogue is just terrible. It's also another great reason. But early on, this movie definitely suffered from an identity crisis. The movie's a buddy comedy sometimes, tongue-in-cheek slapstick sometimes. It tries to be dramatic and bad A at some points. And it's successful at being none of those things because it doesn't really pick a path and stick with it. There was a comedic moment or two that did make me laugh, just like how there's a trident battle at the end of the movie that I thought was pretty cool. There's brief moments for all of them, but in the end, you're still thrown into this weird mess of a movie. The plot of this movie feels like a dollar store Mummy 2, The Dragon Emperor. Fair for me because some of the visuals look like the intro to Mortal Kombat Inception. And the pacing for this movie is not great. This movie is about 2 hours long. The first Aquaman was about 2.5. And this movie feels like it should have been at least that length, possibly 3 hours. For example, Aquaman is going to get his brother. They just kind of montage through with a voiceover explaining what he's going to do. And then it just kind of picks up when he's in the room with him. And that's just where you get. Maybe it picks up a little bit before that, but that's all you get. And I feel like that's clearly where they were kind of shaving time off from this movie. And shaving that time off kind of compromised that scene. That could have been a really cool infiltration scene. In the end, though, it just feels like the rest of the movie, like it kind of just happened. Manta ends up with this advanced yet ancient sub and a crew of people to run it. But where did he get these people from? How'd they train? We don't really know. They just have a little text that says 5 months later, don't question it. The movie just felt disjointed, really. Like you have a movie that's about 2 hours long that feels about an hour longer than that. I was checking my watch so much during this movie. There's a point where I felt like we were kind of getting to this climax of the movie and I checked my watch and there was still an hour left in the movie. Like I have only gone halfway through this movie and there's still another hour left in this movie. It felt a lot longer than it should have felt. Amber Heard is also in this movie, kind of. That was one of the rumors that was kind of going around, that they were kind of cutting Amber Heard out of the movie, but she's still in the movie. Though she is terrible in the movie for the limited screen time she had. A lot of people in this movie are not great. It's just garbage dialogue throughout the whole movie. Her screen time was definitely cut back a lot while making this movie. There's no report that could come out that could convince me that that this was the plan the whole time, that a movie focused on Arthur Curry and his family where his wife just has minimal screen time. And even the screen time that she was in, she has very minimal dialogue. Her character feels like when you throw a party at your house and there's that one person that doesn't leave, they kind of just hang around and you have to go up to them and have that one-on-one conversation where you're like, listen, man, you gotta go. Like, I'm getting tired. I want to go to bed. She was there with nothing to do. Felt like one of those characters that you can't help but feel like, why have her here? Also, this movie's in 3D. Like, why? Well, it's probably to get back every penny that they can. I mean, I guess that's for sure. They definitely just want to get their monies back. We all saw the bad CGI in the trailer. I get it. You can't all be James Cameron. It can't all be Way of Water. But when it doesn't look that good, it just breaks the immersion. Speaking of immersion, though, there are so many scenes of people just standing around while they're talking in the ocean. Like they were in Atlantis just standing around or sitting down. I get it, actors hate being on those wires to be in those underwater scenes. I bet it's obnoxious, but that being said, from a viewer standpoint, it just wasn't immersive. I had to look at their hair to see if their hair was like floating to tell if they were underwater or not. Because they just stand around on land or they stand around underwater. Most of the underwater scenes, like some battles aside, there are scenes where people swim, of course, but no one's on cables, no one's suspended, no one's floating. It doesn't feel like they're underwater when they're underwater. And the plot of this movie really compromised the only thing I was really looking forward to for this movie, that being Manta's revenge quest. Manta was a standout for me in the first movie. I really liked the fact that we were going to see more of him in the second. And when we got that trailer, I was pretty excited because we had more Manta revenge quest. But unfortunately, that's not really what we got. We kind of got this dollar store Nagash from Warhammer poisoning his mind, even talking through him by the end. So it's his revenge quest. It does say that that's the motivation behind it, but in execution, it's not really how it played out. His revenge quest takes a side seat to this dollar store Nagash. There was this one scene with Manta where all the lights were out and you just see his red eyes turn on. And I was like, that's it. That's the James Wan bringing something to this movie. This is when you see the fingerprints of James Wan. I've got to say, this is the only moment, though, where I felt like I saw that. A creepy moment, intimidating figure. Movie wasn't trying to be some weird buddy comedy falling flat. It was a good moment. The movie should have had more of those moments. But yeah, kind of a bummer that the revenge wasn't really there. Not that it really matters, though, because what's it really leading towards, right? Nothing, really. It's done. It's over. This is the funeral of the DCEU. Really, Arthur Curry's arc sucked in this movie, too. I mean, I guess you can call it an arc. Maybe a retcon of the first movie. In the first movie, he had no secrets about it. He didn't want to go to Atlantis. He didn't want the throne of Atlantis, but he didn't really have a choice. But I still felt like at the end of the movie, it was like, okay, this is my destiny. I'm the king. I'm going to be a good king. In Aquaman 2, apparently they had to backtrack in all of that to give Arthur the illusion of complexity. So he doesn't want the job, but he loves telling people that he's the king of Atlantis, which is ego at this point because he just likes the title. His heart really isn't in the job, and it kind of makes you question, is he really the right person for the job? I mean, like, this is a big deal. You're the king of Atlantis. If your heart isn't in this job, then maybe they should pick someone else. In the end, maybe there is a 3-hour version of this movie that is better, but unlike Napoleon, I don't really want any part of that. I don't really want to see a 3-hour version of Aquaman 2. The characters have no development. They're kind of just there. The better villain and story, that being Manta's revenge quest, is kind of wasted for some other villain that is just introduced. You have no idea is there until now. It just doesn't really work out for me. The CGI looks cartoonish at points. There are moments of Patrick Wilson and Jason Momoa, but not really enough to save the movie. In the end, I'll give Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom a 4 out of 10. Alright, so Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Have you guys seen it? If you have, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.